Let's start with what is the Wim Hof method? So basically, it consists of three pillars: the breathing exercises, cold exposure, and mindset. So the mindset commitment. And those three pillars, they work together as a beautiful harmony. And next to that, it's as well, we do a lot of exercises, of stretches, exercises, but it's basically bringing yourself more aligned with nature, with more, no, your inner nature and also with outer nature. And yeah, so growing up with Wim Hof himself, because before it was a method, it was actually something, a practice that was done by our father. And we have witnessed him doing those practices without calling it a name. Because of course it's one individual with his brothers, by the way, doing the methods over and over and every day again. So for us, it was something, yeah, just what it was. It was his practice, but the funny parts was as well, like you sometimes you woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you could go up. We had the stairs going up, and my father was in the living room, and he did his breathing exercises there. And for us, it was completely normal. But if there was a friend coming and seeing my dad without knowing, it's like, what is your father doing? So there I understood, oh yeah, yeah, for us it was to say, yeah, this is just a practice, but for them it was a bit, yeah, odd. But yeah, that is also a little bit what my father is odd. He just does the things what he likes. And further, growing up with Wim is, yeah, he did always very extreme sports. He was very engaged with his practice, very engaged, but as well with yoga, with stretches. So what you see now with yoga, you have the asanas, you go to a practice class, you have certain asanas that you follow. Well, our father did the extreme version, like literally yoga, but then the extreme as headstand or bending, standing with one arm, and then practice it over and over and over again until it was refined. And that was also for him a way of working with his body. So to really understand and to, yeah, increase that bodily intelligence, to listening to that body.
Yeah, one thing that is very clear is that Wim is just a very different person than anybody that you would know. And the first word that you would discuss with him doesn't really matter. If you meet him, you know immediately. This is a man that goes beyond conditioning. And even he himself told it when he was younger, he always felt different. But he really was different. It was completely out of the norm. And what was different about him is that he didn't really follow the rules about in society of what you need to do to be successful in life. He just followed his own intuitive nature. And that means, yeah, he was a yogi in the time when vegetarianism, etc., it was just very weird. So in those times, he was doing the extraordinary, the special. So my father was a very peculiar guy. As a kid, you have no idea. I mean, you're just living with your father. We loved him because he was like a kid. So as children, it was amazing. We always went out playing. He was the first one to tell us, "Hey, listen, we're gonna go and we're gonna play outside." He was the first one to say that. So really going through my childhood with Wim, and I don't know if it was, but for me, I really learned to really listen to myself, to really play as a kid, to really be myself, completely deconditioned. That's Wim. That's Wim. It's out of the societal norms. And that's also why actually all of these practices have been, yeah, created the way that they are. First thing, really, Wim was doing the crazy stuff, right? So extreme stunts. He was doing marathons, bare feet. He was climbing the Mount Everest up until the death zone, the 7,800 meters, in shorts without any oxygen tanks. Can you imagine? Exactly. I can't imagine that. Well, I can, but you know what? It's beyond. sitting in a bucket of ice for 2 hours. And it was so funny because he was the only one breaking his own record. Nobody was doing that at the time. And so that's so funny. Now we have an Austrian guy, it became popular later, only later, ice bathing. It didn't exist. He was the one to bring it really in the West, the breathing exercises. We know it of the ancient. We know it in the Oriental. We know it in the pranayama, that's breathing exercise. But my father really popularized it and brought it to the Western mainstream. And he did it using his own technique, which is more suitable for the modern human being. It's quicker, it's more adaptable. And then the cold, nobody was doing cold plunges. Nobody was going into the cold in the winter. That wasn't done. He was really looked up as a kind of a crazy guy. And now everybody is doing it. But now everybody's doing it because it had such beautiful benefits. And but back in those days, the first workshop they did it with an ice bath. Why? Because it was a controlled way of doing cold exposure, not out in nature, because that's not controlled. It's very difficult to control the circumstances. But with a workshop, they did it. And even the people, for them, it was also very weird. Can you imagine stepping into an ice bath the first time? You don't even know what that is. And so it's so funny because, yeah, I still remember back in those days when it was like a new thing. It was a completely new thing. Now everybody's doing the cold plunges. Everybody's doing the ice bath. But back in those days, it was a crazy thing to do.
I remember as well the first participants in the workshops. There were not so many, like 10, 20, 30 in the beginning, and then later on 1,000. But I remember the people coming in were a bit of alternative. So very different than now. Now it's like you come in and you like the practice, so you're engaged, you're happy. But it was a very different public.
So
but what popularized it was as well. So he did the crazy stuff, like the very odd things, and of course television got very curious. And I must say, there is as well a certain charisma around my father, because ever since he's young, or a photographer or a videographer was always interested in filming him. And it was, of course, also because he had a lean body. He was doing extreme, crazy yoga poses, cold exposure. So, of course, you want to capture it. It's something odd in our society. So I saw that as well. A lot of people were interested in capturing him. And then, so he did world record after world record at a certain moment. And then scientists thought, like, how is this possible? Every normal person would die there. And there, the scientists came in, measured him, and science became a real thing as well in the method to understand why a person can do it. And in 2010, they did a study. It was published in 2012. They did multiple studies about, to see if somebody can influence his autonomic nervous system and immune system, because that is what he was claiming. And they say, like, okay, we can run an experiment. We have seen enough of you to run this experiment and to see if that is possible. So they drew blood out of him before and after injecting an E. coli bacteria, the parts of E. coli bacteria. Normally you get super sick. Okay? You get a fever, you feel nauseous, you have a headache. But my father didn't get sick. So he practiced his method, his breathing exercise as well during this experiment. And yeah, this is what they saw. Like, he didn't get sick, but more stronger is that they saw as well that in his blood, the inflammation was much lower than a normal person would have inflammation, because you're flaring up, you're sick, but he was not sick. So you saw it as well in the blood. And there was, while he was even doing in the ice, because they did several experiments, while he was in the ice, it was even 0% of inflammation. And then he said, okay, but in science, n is 1 is just n is 1. It is an exception, could be an exception. But because the results were so interesting, they did a follow-up study with 24 people. And there they saw the same with those practicing the method.
And that was 100% score. And that really, unequivocally showed that every single person is able to influence their autonomic nervous system and their immune system at will using the method. That is the journey that we really went on to. And we really went from the poorest of the poorest neighborhoods and went on this journey and later catapulted. And now we have a great life. But the journey that we were on, my God, that is a hero's journey for sure. Yeah. So many times, I think the humbleness that we got, because also the way that we grew up, very little means, we're always very happy. And actually also kind of proud, Yeah. But our father really instilled us with a type of proudness. So be confident, have trust in yourself. And those are values really that I think without those, so it's beautiful, this strength actually this journey that it's a hero's journey. Yeah. It's truly a hero's journey if you think about it and looking back, because it is crazy. And now all around the world, I can't go to any country now, talk about ice bath, Wim Hof, without people knowing what it is. Yeah. So it's surreal.
Yeah, my father, he just had us when he started having children when he was 24, and he still was not established in this society. But he fell in love with my mother, and then they had the first one, and then all of a sudden the second one and the third one, and they couldn't stop, I guess. But then, my mother got mentally sick, and then from the fourth child, my brother Michael, it went not good, and then and from there as well, it was a bit more of a carrying zone, and he had all his hands full with us because our mother couldn't take care of us. So he had 4 children to take care of, and she was a couple of months in Spain and a couple of months with us, and then back and forth because her family was from Spain. And what Laura said, like, we were the poorest in the poorest neighborhoods. Actually a bit crazy because we had no money for clothes, decent clothes. But at the same time, you just live your life. And luckily we do live in Holland. So Holland, it's a great country of, okay, these are children, they need to have a proper education, they need to have a possibility. So we went to school. Our father was very motivational in that sense of, hey, go to school, do your best, and let's exercise. A lot of good values actually are there imprinted when you're a child. So we always did our best. We went on a good path, and got educated, and later on we could as well work together with my father, because my father is a super chaotic person, but alive, inspirational. He just does the thing. He doesn't think about it, he does the thing. He also think about, of course, certain things, but his power lays in action. He just takes the action. And then my brother, for example, is more about the framing, the structure. And so that together worked really well.
I have it here, by the way.
When it arrived, of course, when the physical copy arrived,
was crazy.
HarperCollins sent us the copies. Yeah. That was really nice. A very exciting moment. Very exciting moment. And of course, it was very exciting when our father congratulated us when it was really finished, when it was out there in promotion. That was a good compliment to receive. But that's I think these are top 2 that I have.
It's so weird, right?
The book.
Yeah. You're writing, and it's like all on a computer. And then all of a sudden there's like a physical manifestation of what you wrote. It's crazy. And it's surreal, I would say. It's really surreal. And still, I think it's surreal.
It's still surreal.
It's crazy. this is a book. We really did a book.
Not some 200 pages, but it's actual a book.
Well, it's 200. It's a lot. It's a lot. 200. Yeah. The other ones.
And also when they came, I think, with the graphics. So first these are just all words, etc., on paper. So you go through the words. And then when they did the graphic and the design and then send it to you, that's also a very exciting moment. Then you can see it and feel it.